last night, God crossed my path with a neighbor, and we started talking about promises and vows. And it led me to kind of take a peek at my book, Human Promises in God's World. Yeah, it's an extract from Revival Count Me In, the Book of Acts Revived. You know, it's a crazy world we live in, one that must initiate and fulfill promises. Life cannot continue in its completions and achievements without a sure promise. But what if we make some we just can't keep, and how might the outcomes be? What if we are set free from a promise made in error, and that void is replaced with a sure thing? I'm going to focus on Samson. Well, my book, Human Promises in God's World, has some biblical context, teachings on promises, and then some true stories of humans that made promises, and then a prayer of deliverance. Let me just go right to Samson then. I was going to share, it starts with the testimony of myself having read the Bible when I was much younger, even a child. Okay, let's go to what happened is in the chapter What Promise, I was inspired by God to research and teach on this after listening to part 1 of my pastor's message back in 2003. The anointing teaches us, I presume the anointing stayed on me after my pastor preached, singleness of heart, using the account of Samson. Although I had read the accounts before, I read it again to prepare for my pastor's second part of his message. That entire week I was meditating on Samson's vow. This is what broke my heart that day I read it. In the book of Judges, chapters 13 through 16, we are given the account of the life of Samson. We learn that God was at work creating an opportunity to disrupt the Philistines who ruled over Israel at that time. See, God already had his plan. Now, this is not what my Lord, this is not what my pastor was preaching, but this is what God was teaching me when I was researching the scriptures. This is what he revealed to me. So Samson's mother was barren and childless. She is visited by a man of God, an angel of the Lord. She is told what to do and that she will have a baby. Notice when she repeats the message to her husband, I can't pronounce it, I'm sorry, Manoach, a man from Tzorah, from the family of Dan, she adds to the angel's words. She adds, until the day he dies. But we do not know if that was God's perfect word of prophecy. Now, this is where I failed in my own understanding. It is probably because I read through the scriptures too quickly. I knew the beginning of the story, and I knew the end. In the end, it says, so he killed more people when he died than he had during his entire lifetime. I assumed God carried out his own plan by killing the Philistines, but that was not how it was supposed to have happened. And we may never know God's real end-time plan for the killing of the Philistines because Samson instilled his own plan. Samson's plan cost him his eyes. It was never God's plan to have Samson's eyes gouged out. This is my approach. Okay, chapters 14 through 15 tell of Samson desiring a wife from the Philistines. The word does not say he was in love. It states he liked her. Sure, he liked what he saw. His parents were distressed that their own son would choose a wife from the uncircumcised Philistines. However, God was seeking grounds for a quarrel with them. Samson gives a 7-day banquet. He extends a riddle to his wife's 30 fellow countrymen. After the first 3 days, they could not solve it. Now, the answer was buried, just as Jesus was buried. It was not until the 7th day that Samson's wife was threatened by her people to get the answer to the riddle, although she had been crying all 7 days. Now, when Bible words seem to be out of order or illogical, it means you must pause and think. It does not mean to make a new translation that makes sense to men's minds. Contemplate it. She nags Samson the entire time. It gets better. Please follow me here. The epitome of treason, such as was Judas Iscariot's against the Messiah for a lousy 30 pieces of silver foretells the future of Jesus' betrayal for a lousy 30 pieces of clothing. The Bible is supernatural and understood as such. The order of events does not necessarily align with basic human assumption. Samson states that he had not even told his own parents the answer to the riddle. Why should he tell his wife? This unequally yoked marriage was not going to work out. The 30 companions Samson invited to the party had threatened the wife's life on day 7 and not all 7 days. Obviously, her loyalty was to her own people and not to Samson. She should have just told him what was going on. Samson gives in, but does not know that she is being forced to get the answer. He explains the riddle to her. Pretending to have solved the riddle, the men repeat the correct answer to Samson. Then he realizes what's going on. He states that the men have plowed with his heifer, young cow. He was referring to Deuteronomy 21, verses 3 through 4. After it has been determined which town is the closest, the leaders of the town are to take a heifer, a young female cow, that has never been put to work or yoked for use as a draft animal. The leaders of the town are to bring the heifer down to a valley with a stream in it that never dries up, to a place that is neither plowed nor sown, and they are to break the cow's neck there in the valley. Samson is feeling betrayed. The plowing is a digging. It is putting the axe to the root. In the New Covenant, Matthew 3:10, it says, "Already the axe is at the root of the trees, ready to strike. Every tree that doesn't produce good fruit will be chopped down and thrown in the fire." Samson was also prophesying the New Covenant words of John the Baptist. Samson's wife is unfaithful to his secret, therefore an indication to Samson that she would be unfaithful to his bed. The men were not concerned with Samson's welfare. The plowing of the heifer also means plowing another man's ground or territory. The enemy are destroyed. Samson, in a boiling rage, now we're at 14:19, is empowered by God. He kills 30 men and gives their belongings to the men that answered the riddle. He leaves and goes back to mom and dad. After a while, now we're in 15:1, he later returns with a present for his wife. He wants to reconcile. He wants to sleep with her. Now that his anger has passed, he wants his wife. But his father-in-law has already given the wife to the one who had been Samson's best man at his wedding. Ooh. Samson then acts in error. He also, thus far, is shown to be spoiled. He gets what he wants and acts out of pride. He takes his life and strength for granted. Yet we see God working with him. Why? Because sometimes this is how life works between God and natural man. He exempts himself from any responsibilities of what he is about to do. He catches 300 foxes. He ties their tails together, attaches torches, and lets them loose in the wheat field. The Philistines once again take their revenge by burning the wife and her father, which was the original threat if they did not get the answer to the riddle. Now, think about that. This makes Samson more furious and leads him to making a vow to himself, which is a promise. He says to them, "I will certainly have my revenge on you for doing such a thing, but after I do, I'll stop." That's 15:7. Notice it was his revenge, but God is still empowering him. Samson's killings were a massacre that day. He never really stops. When did he think he would be finished? Whose power is it? His or God's? In chapter 16, Samson spends the night with a prostitute and escapes an ambush. In chapter 16:4, Samson falls in love. Not likes, but love. He toys with Delilah, his true love, about where his strength comes from, only to reap it later. She too is coaxed by the Philistines as Samson's wife had been. Her nagging bothers Samson to death, and he succumbs. What had actually happened was that Samson emptied his heart to her, an ordinary human being. Psalm 62 says, "My soul waits in silence for God alone. My salvation comes from Him. He alone is my rock and salvation, my stronghold. How long will you assail a person in order to murder him, all of you, as if he were a sagging wall or a shaky fence? They only want to shake him from his height. They take delight in lying. With their mouths they bless, but inwardly they curse. Trust in Him, people, at all times. Pour out your heart before Him. God is a refuge for us." Samson gives holy information to a deceiver, and this holiness lives in his heart. It was not about his hair. The hair was symbolic. Naturally, Samson takes the situation for granted again, but this time he is humbled. Samson loses his power after he tells a deceitful person all his heart. The hair is simply an outward sign of being totally consecrated to the Lord, the Nazirite vow, which affords supernatural strength and commands holy consecration to God. Samson accepted the strength, but not the devotion to his God, and his power was actually in his heart. Now, the impossible can be accomplished when we give God all our heart. We can also be vexed by someone as they wear us down, no matter how anointed we are.